I think someone has unmuted and is disturbing the session, so please mute. And if you can hear me, please drop an emoji in the chat box so that we can kickstart. Can you hear me? Please, can you hear me? All right.
Yes, we can hear you. Please speak.
Can you hear me? All right. So good evening to everyone once again. You're welcome to today's training. This is the 6th and the last online training session. Yes, I know that you are as excited as I am because today will be our last online training session of the Institute for Liberty and Economic Education's Freedom Writers Fellowship. Yes. My name remains Christiana. I've been with you throughout. And today, guess what? We have a guest moderator who is in the person of Priscilla Alifu. So she will be moderating this session with me. I will do the introductory part and she would end the session for today. All right. So we'll still like to talk about the Freedom Writers Fellowship. So the ILEE Freedom Writers Fellowship is a prestigious program designed to cultivate and empower writers who champion the principles of free markets and individual liberty. This comprehensive initiative identifies, trains, and mentors individuals passionate about libertarianism, storytelling, advocacy, and impactful writing. The program's objective is to foster a community of writers dedicated to promoting liberty and free markets, equip participants with skills and knowledge to craft compelling narratives that inspire change, amplify the voices of underrepresented groups in society through thoughtful and engaging writing, and also to provide a platform for writers to share their work and connect with like-minded individuals. I really like the last objective, okay? This is where you get to meet like-minded individuals and network to expand your scope. So we are excited to have you, and today is our last session, yes. And today we'll be trained on the topic, the power of storytelling. Wow, I love today's topic, the power of storytelling. If you're as excited as I am, drop an emoji in the chat box indicating how excited you are for today's session. And I am honored to introduce to you our facilitator for the day, who is in the person of Mr. Olufemi Ogunjobi. Wow, that's a nice name. I like your name. So Mr. Olufemi Ogunjobi is a strategic non-profit leader with over a decade at the Students for Liberty. He specializes in leadership development, mentorship, and economic freedom. He has built global partnerships, led high-impact programs across Africa, and uses storytelling to inspire action, build community, and advance liberty across the world. Wow. We are so honored to have Mr. Olufemi today. Looking at his achievements, it means that we are blessed to have him take us through today's session. So, Mr. Olufemi, you're welcome, and we are ready for your session. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Christiana, for the warm introductions. I'm excited to be here and to reunite with you once again. I know a couple of folks on this call, Eric, of course, and so it's nice to be with everyone. I hope the week has been great, or the previous lecture series or workshop series has been great as well. And over the next few minutes, we'll be talking to each other on a very interesting topic. But before I delve into that, I'm just going to go ahead to share my screen. Okay. Righty. Okay. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, please. We can see your screen.
Fantastic. So,
Yes, we can.
yeah, great. So thank you all for having me, and thank you, Eric, for extending the invitation. I'm excited to be here. And as I mentioned earlier, for the next couple of minutes, we're going to talk to each other about a very important topic that we need in our lives, in the line of our work, in our roles and responsibilities, whatever it is that we are doing. Um, we need to, we need the power of storytelling. So a bit, Christiana already mentioned a bit about myself. So my name is Olufemi, um, Femi for short. So that's fine. Currently, I'm the Alumni Advancement Manager at Students for Liberty, where I manage partnerships and global collaborations with alumni and our partners all over the world, and also oversee mentorships programs as well. But in the organization, you know, I've moved around quite a bit. I started off as a volunteer, as a local coordinator, transitioned to being a national coordinator and then a regional coordinator, where I was in charge of Ghana and some other West African countries. There I worked closely with Eric and some of our folks in Ghana as well. And then I became the chairperson of the executive board as well. I joined the international executive board, and uh in 2017 I joined the organization as a staff, where I managed African programs. Afterwards, I moved on to being the programs manager, and in 2022 I transitioned from African programs to a global role, and to a Prometheus mentorship fellowship program where I oversaw mentorship program. And then afterwards, I became the director of the program itself. But we ended the program, the fellowship program last year. And so I transitioned to the alumni programs where I'm currently overseeing global partnerships and collaboration and mentorships. But I do have an excellent background as a journalist because I first off, I studied communication and language at a university, and I was a journalist before I ventured into nonprofit management work. So I storytelling matters a lot to me. I've commissioned a lot of articles and stories, and I constantly train young people on the art of communication as well, and just a bit of myself as well, and and all. So let's move forward. I would want, as I progress with this presentation, I would at some point, you know, ask you questions and solicit your feedback on certain things. But look at the image before you, look at whatever it is you can see on the screen right now. This could be you, really. I mean, if you are the young man standing before hundreds or thousands of an audience, what exactly would be running through your mind at that particular moment? What exactly can you say to those people? You know, and that's um, a situation where sometimes we find ourselves, and that's where storytelling comes in, because you look at the audience before you, and you feel like, what exactly do I want to tell these people that they probably haven't heard before? Or how exactly am I going to make sure that they leave this setting or this event with with a lasting impression? So this could be you, or this probably was you, or were you, or would be you in the next few months or in the future. But this could be anyone. We've been faced with situations like this where we don't know what next to do. So what exactly is storytelling? If I can have maybe one or two responses in the chat, I would appreciate that. What does it mean to you? If Christiana can take a look at the chat, Okay. Okay. I can't see any response, but let's move forward. But at least this picture tells maybe reminds you of certain things. How many of us remember the Tales by Moonlight stories when we were younger, when we were kids? If you remember such, I can have some reactions in the chat, if you remember. Yeah, thanks, Tajuddin. It's an art of telling any story in your own preferred language and style. That's absolutely brilliant and correct. If you have, any remembrance of what this picture tells you, can I have some comments in the chat, and and reactions? If maybe when you were younger, you sit around the bonfire at night under the tree, and maybe someone older than you were telling you stories. Exactly, right. That's correct. Yeah, so how many of us still remember some of those tales? How many of us still remember some? I for one, I could still remember some of those tales, really. But it tells you how much storytelling, how much impact storytelling has. You know, the communication, how, it affects people emotionally. Those are the elements of storytelling. Because for one, it evokes emotion and it affects us in a certain way. I can't forget, no matter how old I am, I can't forget some of the tales we were being told when we were younger at this particular at this particular setting. Exactly. But storytelling is just more than words. It's more than just sitting around bonfire under the tree. Storytelling is connection. You know, stories itself, they are vehicles for connection. They leave a lasting impression. And storytelling empathize with the needs of people, the wants of people, and they share facts around stories. They share facts around stories. We'll still delve into nitty-gritties of, storytelling, but just so you know that if, as I'm talking to you, I'm trying to make a connection, and storytelling is just about that. It's much more of a connection than just, it's not a speech. You're not giving a speech, you're not giving a lecture. You can see in the image a young man or an old man is trying to bond, is trying to connect with a young man, probably through stories in the Bible, through stories in a book. So that exactly is what storytelling is all about. It's all about connection. They are vehicles for connection. They are meant to leave a lasting impression on others. They come with empathy. They come with empathizing with the needs and wants of people, weaved around or woven around stories. Storytelling communicates values. And the first picture I showed you of a man talking to kids, under the tree, they are mostly about moral values, mostly about the values of the society and whatnot. Storytelling communicates value. It could be values of the organization, it could be values of your personal life, it could be values of the future. It communicates values, it communicates how people should live in the society. What exactly should we be mindful of? Storytelling inspires action. It evokes people's emotions and cause them to act in a certain way. It inspires action because people are moved by the stories they hear. People are moved by the stories they hear. If this were to be a lecture, people can doze over lectures. But have you ever listened to a particular speech that is woven around stories that people sleep off? There are some events that people go to that they really don't want those events to end. People like, I always want to listen to this speaker. I'm never bored with this speaker. It is the style of it's the speaker style and how the speaker has, woven a speech around stories. Storytellers are speakers. They are never boring. They are never a boring speaker because there is always something in their stories that would inspire action. And that's why some people see there are some speakers that they call, the charismatic speakers. Some speakers are like that. Some of them have those elements of storytelling. They evoke emotion, they inspire action. That's what storytelling is also about. And in today's world, there's always this argument about data storytelling. I would I would let us understand the nexus between them and why exactly storytelling beats data. Of course, this is a picture of storytelling punching data-driven facts. And this is it. Data alone would inform, give us loads of information, loads of elements. It will give us logic, reason. Data will tell you this is exactly what has happened based on X, Y, Z. But stories are not like that. Story-driven data would inspire you, would not only inform, would inspire you, would also cause you to act in a certain way. While data alone informs logic, story-driven data also inspires logic and emotions. So it's both logic and emotions. While data deals with facts, story-driven data deals with facts and emotions. And you can forget data. Data alone can give you a short-term memory. I probably may not remember all, not every one of us can even remember all the subjects we were taught in school anyway, when we were younger, maybe secondary school or high school. But there are some subjects we can never forget just based on how the teachers delivered those courses or lessons, maybe woven around stories or had some lasting effect on us. So while data alone would give you or would inform short-term memory, story-driven data, would cause long-term impact. I'm just gonna go through why this is just not us talking about how important, how cool storytelling is, but the neuroscience of storytelling itself, and how you see the nexus between the heart and the mind, and how this all connects together to storytelling. Why do humans love stories? There is a science behind it. Why do our brains love stories? Why is it that whenever you hear stories, there is a particular portion of your brain that is drawn or that is attracted to stories? So, a particular portion of our brain releases dopamine, and that causes focus, motivation, and memory. And then it helps us, it creates suspense and uses a kind of a cliffhanger. That's one. It also releases serotonin, and it gives us this feeling of well-being, happiness, love, surprise, and all. And for you as a storyteller, or for you as a speaker, or for you as a young leader, if you want to evoke this in your audience, you need to. That's why some people tell jokes, with surprises, with delightful element into their presentation. It's to evoke this feeling of well-being, this feeling of happiness in audience, just because a particular side of our brain is wired to be drawn to these elements. And oxytocin as well, which has a trust effect, a generosity effect, a bonding effect, a love effect on people. And that's why speakers that tend to blend towards storytelling are empathetic, or they put on this empathetic character whenever they tell their stories. Sort of, I'm in your shoes, I put myself in your shoes. People who use storytelling in their speech, in their presentation, in their daily lives always, all the time, they empathize with you. They put themselves in their shoes so that you feel exactly what they are feeling, or they feel exactly what you're feeling. So, in a natural way, our brains love stories. In a very natural way, our brains love stories. This is just, a chemist or a physician putting all of these things, cooking all of these things together. And that's exactly what it tells you to as a speaker. So that whenever you want to talk to people, whenever you want to maybe write the next article, run the next activism, you weave all of these elements into your next piece, into your next speech, into your next campaign. It's very, very important. Even when you're communicating to people about YAFO, about ILEE, you want to make sure that your message hits the right spot by considering this element. I'm going to play a quick video, and it points to some of the things I've mentioned earlier as well. Please let me know if you can hear. Can you hear before I continue? Okay, good. Great.
I want to tell you a story about a little boy named Ben. Ben is 2.5 years old, and Ben has brain cancer. And Ben's really happy. He's happy because he's been through 2 rounds of chemo and radiation, and he feels good for once. He doesn't feel yucky, and his father's enjoying seeing Ben's happiness. As the father tells the story of Ben and his cancer, father's voice begins to break. And he says, it's very difficult to play with Ben because Ben thinks everything is wonderful, but I know something that Ben doesn't, that Ben's dying. And he talks about how difficult it is to play with Ben, knowing that in 3 or 6 months, Ben will be dead. And yet Ben is so happy, he's so beautiful. And so the father tries as hard as he can to enjoy Ben, to be joyful around Ben. But then he says in the middle of this short story that it's an amazing thing to know how little time one has left. And as he says that statement, he has merged himself with his son. It's as if the father himself is dying. So in my laboratory, we've studied this story extensively. What we found is that 2 primary emotions were elicited. One is distress, and the other is empathy. At the same time, when we asked people what they felt after the story was over, we really couldn't get very clear answers. So we began doing other studies on this story. So we took blood before and after, and we found that the brain produced 2 interesting chemicals. One is called cortisol, which focuses our attention on something important. So cortisol correlated with our sense of distress. So the more distress you felt, the more cortisol you released, and the more you paid attention to that stimulus. The second chemical release is called oxytocin, which is associated with care and connection and empathy. And oxytocin was correlated with people's sense of empathy. And the more oxytocin they released, the more empathic they felt towards Ben and his father. And we did something different after this experiment. We gave individuals a chance to share money with a stranger in the lab. And indeed, those who produced both cortisol and oxytocin were more likely to donate money generously to a stranger they couldn't see in the lab. In another experiment, we gave individuals a chance to donate money to a charity that works with children who are ill. And indeed, those who released oxytocin or cortisol donated money to this charity. In fact, the amount of oxytocin release predicted in both cases how much money people would share with a stranger or with charity. What we're seeing is that this narrative is changing behavior by changing our brain chemistry. So we decided to go a little further and ask, could we actually predict before they watched the video who would donate money to charity? So with funding from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, we reran the study in which we not only took blood, but now we measured heart rate and skin conductance and respiration. And using these additional measures, we were able to identify this distress response and this empathic response, and we could predict with 80% accuracy who would donate money to charity. These individuals get paid about $20 to be in the experiment, and the people who donated money on average donated half their earnings. So we began to investigate the story further. We used functional brain imaging to identify the regions in the brain that were most active while watching that video compared to a control video in which Ben and his father were at the zoo. And what we found was that the most active areas for the emotional story were areas in the brain associated with theory of mind or understanding of what others are doing, and areas that are rich in oxytocin receptors that make us feel empathy. And guess what happens when you watch 100 seconds of a father and son at the zoo? Nothing happens and people just blank out. There's no reason for them to attend to this information because nothing's happening. There's nothing exciting. It's important to understand that stories have to have this particular structure. 150 years ago, a German theorist named Freytag called this the dramatic arc. So there are particular story aspects that go into making an effective story: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and then this denouement. The story of Ben and his father talking about knowing his son is dying has those aspects. It captures their attention. There's a coming climax. How can Ben's father actually engage with his son in this wonderful, relaxed, playful way, yet knowing that his son will die soon? It seems like there may be a universal kind of story structure. So stories are powerful because they transport us into other people's worlds, but in doing that, they change the way our brains work and potentially change our brain chemistry. And that's what it means to be a social creature, is to connect to others, to care about others, even complete strangers. And it's so interesting that dramatic stories cause us to do this. In these experiments, they do it in a very functional way. People are donating money because they want to help Ben and his father. And yet when we watch other stories or see movies, listen to music, the same thing can happen. We feel uplifted, we feel motivated, or we feel connected to others around us.
Thank you for watching. Okay. All right. So thank you for watching that. And I believe it kind of sums up what I've said in the last few slides about how a particular part of our brain, is wired to story elements or to very good stories. Because when you tell people stories, you are inviting them into your own world and kind of putting them in your own shoes. So when people see a bit of themselves in you, they are naturally drawn to you. They are naturally drawn to your story. So in every aspect of our lives, whether you're a leader, whether you're an activist, or whatever it is that you're doing, storytelling is actually very, very powerful in your everyday life. You want to make sure that people are drawn to you, whatever it is that you do, or your heart of communication. I'll be sharing with us elements of a powerful story. And the first one is you have to be a relatable character. And what does that mean? People are interested in who you are and what you do. And I'm telling you this especially because we are connected to incredible organizations doing amazing things on the continent. And as you go around to talk to people about what you do, as you host events and attract more people to the Freedom Fold, a lot of people out there don't exactly know what we stand for. They don't exactly know what economic freedom is. They don't know what classical liberalism is. But you need to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a character that people can relate to. People are not interested in loads of theses, loads of text, loads of stories. I mean, loads of books. They are not interested in that. They want to know what exactly you do, why is your work so important, and who exactly you are. So put that in mind whenever it is you're telling people about your story. And another element of a very, very powerful story is what makes you different. I mean, what makes you you? How is your work so different? How is your work so unusual? How is ILEE and and therefore how are they different in the classic liberal space in Ghana, for instance? What makes their work so unique? What makes it so unusual? You need to bring out the authentic side of your work, the authentic side of your organization, the authentic side of yourself whenever it is you're telling a story. How is Student for Liberty different, for instance? Why is what I do different from every other thing every other person do? And another element is emotional journey. Why should I care about you? I mean, you're telling me this, you're inviting me to your organization, you're asking me to do X, Y, Z. Why should I care? And so what? So, I mean, and so what? Why should people care? Oftentimes there is always this argument, especially on the left, that, classic liberal folks, or libertarians don't even care about other people. They care about profit and all of that. Of course, we know that's not true, but we need to show them a side of us that care. We need to show them that we care about the most number of people, actually. We care about everyone, and that these ideas care about human flourishing. Because you need to share why people should be interested in your organization. Why should people should be interested in these ideas? I think I'm gonna tell us a very quick story. When we started off with hosting campus events in Nigeria, talking to people about classic liberal ideas, freedom, free markets, whatnot, and all of that. And it was kind of very strange, especially on campuses where we've been fed with socialist dogma, communism. You mostly see on college campuses that the libraries are filled with communist, Karl Marx, Marxist, text and all of that. And then you are on the other side, you are hosting event about free market, the benefits of capitalism and whatnot. And a very problem we have from the start was, how do we craft our messaging in a way that would attract people? And we thought about, okay, free market is also the same thing as entrepreneurship, you know, and everyone loves to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not bad, So we started crafting our messaging around entrepreneurship. So it doesn't look as if free markets or capitalism is an imported ideology from the West and whatnot. So we started, bringing in relatable terminologies, entrepreneurship, of course. We started sharing African text, argument about free trade from African perspective. And then you find loads of that on Liberty in Africa courses, and I'm sure Yafo and Eric have developed some as well. So we appeal to the emotional side of people, and we tell them that you should care about this because we care about this as well. So whenever you are telling stories, whenever you are talking to people, you need to appeal to their emotional side. Why exactly should they care about you? Who are you really? And so on. Because they are bothered about a lot of things going on in their life. So why should they stop to listen to you? Why should they stop and make this decision just because you told them to? And lastly, on this side, what exactly is the one issue or problem you're trying to solve? That exactly, is also one of the very powerful element of a very, very powerful story. What exactly is the problem or the issue you're trying to solve with the story? And what do you want people to do about it? And you're not just telling them to act on a particular situation, you're also giving them the resources to do so. Some sort of a call to action. And that's why whenever some of us watch movies, you're always looking for, especially movies that, like series, that you're always waiting for the next one, when the next episode will, when the next series will be out and whatnot. It's because you are eager to know what happened after. And what brings me to the end of this, like, so what next after? Did the guy really die in this movie? Did the guy really lose his job in this movie? We always want to know the ending. And every story, every good story, every powerful story should always have a transformative ending. Because a particular side, human beings love stories, that's for sure. But human beings love more a transformative ending of a very good story. They want to make sure that there is hope after all this ends. When you talk to people about these ideas, when you talk to people about what you do, you want to make sure that you share stories that inspire success. That if you can't be a part of what I do, these XYZ number of good things are also going to happen in your life. And that is why organizations also prioritize success stories. We'll still delve into that. That's why organizations prioritize success stories. That's why organizations prioritize impact stories. Because these stories tell people the impact of the work that they do. And it's because there is an element of a powerful story that is inclined towards transformative ending. And that's what people are interested in. If you're talking for a whole lot of time, I may not be interested, but I'm interested in the ending. So what happened at the end? If you're talking to people about very good story and it ends badly, people will probably feel depressed, But a very powerful story has a transformative ending, has a successful ending. You may wonder what kind of stories can I tell in my line of work? Success and impact stories. I mentioned it earlier that organizations naturally are drawn, and that's why they publish success and impact stories, because it tells how much of impact, how much of success their work have been. They shout about it, they brag about it to donors to get more funding, they brag about it to friends, to partners. So look at the impact of our work. We have XYZ number of people in XYZ number of countries. We've trained over 1,000, blah, 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 students across the world. It tells people the impact of your work so that they are drawn to you, so that they're like, these guys are doing an incredible job. I really want to be a part of them. I really want to be a part of them. My own story, how I joined Student for Liberty was funny because I used to be a campus journalist and I attended this conference as a journalist. There was this conference that was happening on campus, so I was invited. So I attended. Two things took me to that conference. It was a conference that was hosted at the University of Ibadan in 2013. I attended the conference for two basic reasons. First off, as a journalists, we move around campus and scout for stories to report. So I was like, okay, let me attend this conference. At least I have something to report, even if the event does not make sense to me, right? So I attended the conference. It was very cool. It was different from every other conference I've attended on campus. And I found it very, very interesting and all. Okay. The conference appealed to me naturally. I like it. And the second purpose for going to that conference was to make a reportage of the events, which I did. XYZ number of, XYZ event happened on this campus on this day. So I did that. So luckily for me, the reportage of that event was published, like had a full page-wide publication in the Nation newspaper then in Nigeria. Of course, the Nation is still in Nigeria, but in the Nation it made a full page coverage. I was surprised too. So when the report came out, it was published in national newspaper. Then it was Maiwa who organized. Maiwa now is SFL's chief of staff. So I looked around for him. I got his contact. So I met with him. I said, look, I was at your event last weekend, which you organized at the University of Ibadan. My name is Femi. I'm a campus journalist. I enjoyed your event, and I made it a point of duty to report it as a campus journalist. So he looked at it and said, wow, we've never had, this kind of publication for any of our events before. Like, this is good. Thank you very much. Like, would you mind joining, be a part of our organization? And I was like, if there's any opportunity to be a part of what you do, because I was at a conference last weekend and I really enjoyed it. So if there's any opportunity to be a part of the organization, I would really love to. He said, no problem. You have to apply through um a volunteer program. That's the local coordinator program, and which is coming up, I think in a few months then after then. I said, I'll be happy to. So he got my contacts and then he asked me to apply and I did. So I formally became a coordinator in 2014. Then we started hosting events on campus and whatnot, and that's my story today. So that's just to tell you, how much events, stories mean to people. If probably I had not found some sessions engaging at that conference, I probably would not be where I am today with the organization or not. So that's to tell you how much success and impact stories mean to people. And this slide is a snapshot of what's a few of success stories you would find on Student for Liberty website. And these are spotlight stories of students, young people like everyone on this call, all around the world. There's Jack Nicastro in the United States, Rashid from Bangladesh, Stefan from Ukraine, Rohan from the United States as well. There are tons of stories. And the first picture you can see on the slide is Emmanuel Ferretti with the president of Argentina, and they invited him over for a conference. So our students are doing impressive stuff all over the world, and the organization never stops to brag about them. And this is an impact story of Eric himself. When Eric was transitioning from being a coordinator in the organization. This was published on SFL blog in 2020. That was 5 years ago. And basically talking about how much Eric has impacted our students. He became a local coordinator in 2016 and was very, very active and instrumental in reviving SFL Ghana when hopes were lost. And I just want to give huge props to Eric for his incredible strides in Ghana at a very critical moment when SFL Ghana activities were very, very limited. So he was the only coordinator then who single-handedly worked very hard to recruit leaders. And Eric single-handedly grew the SFL movement in Liberty movement in Ghana, started traveling around campuses, hosting leadership forums and all of that to students. So we're still very proud of the incredible work Eric did in Ghana for laying that foundation for which we now have a stabilized SFL activity in Ghana right now and all. So that's to tell you how much impact stories mean to organizations. This is a story that was published 5 years ago. I just searched for Eric and I found it's there for everyone to see. So anyone can come back to the website 20 years from now and still find a record of the incredible stuff Eric did. And just to show you a couple of stories, people are also drawn to personal stories. They want to know how you found the ideas of liberty, for instance. I mean, if I were to come to Ghana today and tell people how much I know about the liberty movement in Ghana, even though I'm not a Ghanaian, I can tell much about Ghana because I have personal connections, I have personal friends, I have personal stories in Ghana, you know. And these are a couple of pictures from our events and activities in Ghana. For instance, you can see myself and Eric. Look at our face, very, very young, and a couple of events that were hosted as well in Ghana. Um, I think I missed some pictures. There were some pictures with Nathaniel Dwamena as well of Yafo, that we can also see here. We had a lot of exciting times with Eric, the SFL group in Ghana then and Yafo as well. And of course, we're very, very proud of the incredible work that has been done in Yafo as well. So people are interested in your personal stories, how you found the ideas of liberty, how exactly, if I if I start to mention how I got into SFL, it's like it feels like a personal connection to me because of how I found the organization. So whenever I share stories about the organization, it's always from a personal side. So I feel it personally. It's like we call ourselves S family. We belong to the S family. So and it feels like that for every one of us because the organization has appealed to a personal side of us. I also want to mention that stories add value to other people's lives, and whatever it is that you do in communicating to people, you want to make sure that you're adding value to their lives. And uh, an essence is, find out what others need and give it to them. That's basically it. Don't just sell stories. Don't just give a speech for the sake of it. You're adding people. You're adding value to their lives. Whatever it is that is missing in their lives, know that you're telling those stories to fill those gaps and giving them or attending to their needs. What are the tips for telling very good stories? First off is leading with vulnerability. You're not perfect. No one is. And I want you to know that whenever it is you're telling your story, you need to lead with vulnerability. Know that I'm presenting myself not as a perfect human being, but that I've also been through everything you're also going through. And that is my charge to you all today, that whenever you're telling people stories, you're empathizing with them and you're putting them in your shoes. You're not perfect, no one is, but you're leading with vulnerability. That whatever it is you're going through, I've also gone through that as well. Be credible, no lies, no offense. While you're telling stories, it's possible that people mix in lies just to make sure that it's sweet. I'm telling a very sweet story. People tend to infuse lies. No, be credible. Make sure that you're speaking from a place of knowledge, you're speaking from a place of truth. No lies and no offense. Make sure that you're telling stories that's not hurting people. Why are you stepping on them when you're even telling a story? So be credible, you're telling no lies, and you're making no offense. It's impossible not to offend people, but make sure that when you're telling your stories, you're telling no lies, and you try now as much as possible not to offend people. Use clear details and emotions. When I shared my story of how I found SFL, you could see that I'm very passionate about it because I've devoted the last decade of my life to this organization. So you can tell how much it means to me. So whenever you're telling story, everyone's story is different. But whenever you're telling your own story, make sure that it has clear details. You make sure you use clear details and you make sure that you use clear emotions. You show stories, you show with stories. You don't just tell it, you show it. If I know for one that, and this is what I tell people and young people, especially when I tell new volunteers that are just joining the organization, that I've been a part of so many organizations in my adult life. I know Rotaract, I know JCI, I know Rotary, I know a couple of organizations. I know Red Cross. I know a couple of organizations that probably has maybe the same international status that young people move into, maybe in college or whatnot. I know a couple of them and I've been a part of them. But I say that from my experience that there's no organization that I know, international organization, that cares so much about young people or about their leadership development and then also gives them stipends, grants to run things on their own on campuses. The support that SFL, as much as FSL does. I haven't seen those organizations. I'll give you an example. There are some organizations that before you run events, you would have to fundraise. You would have to fundraise for those events. You would have to fund as much as you're hosting it yourself. You have to fundraise. But when I tell people about SFL, like SFL will still give you micro grants. Even though you can fundraise on your own, but SFL will still give you grants to run those events. Right. So organizations are different. But this is when I tell people about the organization, like personally, for one, all of the incredible accomplishment that I have had today as a young adult, in terms of leadership, in terms of certifications, I give credit to SFL for doing that to me. And I'm not just bragging about it. I am saying it because it happened to me. So when I tell people all the time, every of the certification you can see, apart from my hard work that pays it, I'm grateful for the organization that has allowed it for me. So that's my own story. But the essence is you show, you don't just tell. You show it. This is how much this organization has been part of my life. This is how much this job has given me. This is how much Eric has done for me. You show, you don't just tell people. And then you invite your audience into your world. You invite your audience into your story. Have you ever felt like this? Have you ever felt like this? When you begin to share, thoughts like that, people will now be like, oh yeah, I feel that too. I feel that too. And that's why psychiatrists or therapists, they don't have any magical powers, really. But they invite their audience into their own world. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever felt this way? So they ask you leading questions. They ask you leading, and that's why their sessions, that's why people are the most vulnerable with their therapists because they invite their audience into their own world. They don't judge you, they don't do anything. And that's exactly what we should learn in how to tell our own stories. You invite your own story into your own world. You invite your audience into your own world. Have you felt like this? Do you feel this way? It's valid, and whatnot. And once you are able to balance this carefully, you would see how it improve your own personal lives and personal interactions with people as well. Where can you use storytelling? I would say for sure in our everyday lives. But if you want a list, you can use it in your speeches, your presentations, just as I'm doing right now. As an organization, for your fundraising campaign efforts, you can do that. In fact, donors are more drawn to excellent stories, more than whatever it is you can put in your report. Okay, we did this, we did this, we did this, blah, 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 blah. Donors are more interested in how your organization has done X, Y, Z. They're interested in the stories. Don't just give them numbers. We raised X, Y, Z. We did this Q2. Data is somersaulting on data. No. Add element of stories. They will be naturally drawn to that. The best of fundraising proposals I've read are those that infused excellent elements of storytelling, even campaigns too. And that's why I don't know if you remember this the Me Too campaign, the End SARS campaign in Nigeria and whatnot. Some of you may remember. And why were these campaigns so effective? It was because people were sharing their own stories. The Me Too movement too. It has happened to me too. It has happened to me too. The End SARS movement. Oh, I've also suffered in the end of SARS. I've also suffered police brutality. People were coming around with their own stories. That's exactly how it works. That's exactly how it works with campaigns. And you can also use storytelling in leadership and in team building. Whether you are talking to your students, whether you are talking to your team, make use of stories, build them together with stories. And of course, I can't stress this enough. At job interviews, of course, you want to begin your interview with how you did this at XYZ, organization. Very important. Employers are drawn to stories. They've read your CV before you come on the interview. They've seen your presence on LinkedIn. They know a bit about you. But the purpose of that interview is to hear your story. So make sure that whatever it is that you do, that you infuse element of storytelling. And of course, in advocacy and social media, if you know, if you yeah, how many of us know Humans of New York? There is this some of you may know Humans of New York, where they share random stories of people on social media. You probably do. Humans of New York. It's an excellent style of advocacy and social media storytelling. They just post stories of people all across the world, from every corner of the world, their picture, their profile, and their story. In fact, organizations have now adopted the Humans of New York style of storytelling in crafting messaging, in crafting reports and whatnot. So in our daily lives, in our organization, we can't do without storytelling and advocacy effort. Whatever it is highly is doing, we can't do without storytelling. And I'm just gonna end with a couple of nuggets. And the fact is, facts tell. Facts will tell you, we talked about it earlier. Facts will tell you a lot of things. A lot of things. But stories will sell. Stories will sell. And I'll relate it to a very simple analogy. When you go to the market, the person that is dramatic, that is dancing around his trade, that is dancing around his, his wares at the market, that is ringing the bell, that is dancing, you see that people will naturally go to him. Even if his stuff are not the top quality, or even if his stuff are not the top quality, but the fact that he's telling stories, he's inviting people, he's dancing, theatrics and all of that, people will naturally will naturally, you know, go to him. So facts will tell, and facts you can relate that to data. Data will tell you loads of stuff, but stories will sell. It will sell fast. People don't follow the ideas; they follow the stories. And this last sentence is very important in our lives because we'll talk to people about ideas, free market ideas, economic freedom ideas. These are very important ideas in our lives today, in our world today. But people are not just going to follow us for the ideas. They're going to follow us for the stories. How exactly has the ideas of liberty improved your life? That's what people want to know. If you're saying I should join this organization, how exactly has this organization changed your life? I have that story with Student for Liberty. Eric has that story with his organization as well. So my charge to you is don't just sell the ideas to people, sell the stories. Sell the stories behind the idea. People will want to know how did you find the ideas of liberty? And that's when I tell people or when I recruit them into the organization, I lead and start with the story of how I joined the organization. That's exactly how I start. So people will just follow the ideas. Okay, I'm asking you to join our campaign so we can promote free trade. No, 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 no. People will follow the stories. What's the impact of this policy on you? People are drawn to, Mama, if the government does this will be the impact on your business. This will be the impact on your profit. So people will naturally follow the stories. If you keep telling them about the fact 85% of people are unemployed, no, 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 no. They may understand, but they won't follow it. So people would follow you for the stories, not the ideas. And what's a story that only you can tell? There's always a story only you can tell. No one can tell my story better than I do. People are writing memoir on behalf of people. People are contract writers and all of that. That's fine. But no one can ever tell the story more than you do. No one can tell my story than I do. So there is always that story that only you can tell. So I'm leaving you with this, that you go around and search within yourself for that story that only you can tell. And to close with a very beautiful quote from Maya Angelou, that at the end of the day, people will not only remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. In the twinkle of an eye, if you talk to 1,000 people, they'll probably not remember. Or maybe they will remember for 5 minutes or so. They won't remember what you said. They will remember what you did. But they will remember how you made them feel. And that's exactly what stories do to people. Thank you very much, guys, for having me. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any for the time we have. Thank you so much. Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Olufemo Ogonjobi. So, fellas, please, if there are any questions, he's open to them. Thank you. Anyone with any question?
I have a question. Who is the representative from Yafo here, Eric? Thanks for the case. Who is the representative from Yafo here? Is that Priscilla?
No, please. I'm an intern.
Okay, okay. You're hinting with Eric or Yafo?
Eric, please.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. I thought I, heard Nath earlier before the session started from Yafo. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Please feel free to reach out, probably through Eric or my personal email as well, if you have any questions. Yeah, okay. Seems to be. All right, so there is a question from Richmond that when you say storytelling, do you mean tales or basically anything communication? No. I'm not just saying storytelling for tales. No. I mean, people want to, hear real life stories. It's applicable for our daily lives in communication. Yeah. I think communication is neatly tied. Storytelling is neatly tied to communication because, excuse me, I have a solid background in com, so I know how much this is very, very helpful. Anything communication, basically, in our daily lives, where we get to interact and communicate with people, um, storytelling is very, very valuable. For instance, I don't know what you do for work, Richmond, or at what stage you are right now, whether in college or you're working, but I I know how much of a storytelling can be of impact in your lives. And even in talking to people, even in, communicating with your lecturers, even in writing your thesis, you want to make sure that people are um you are involving people in whatever it is, okay, college, yeah, in whatever it is you're doing. Whether you're writing theses, whether you're writing assignments, whether you're doing any project work, you want to make sure that whatever it is you're doing that affects people, you infuse storytelling. And that's why the best of writers are, are storytellers. That's why the best of writers are storytellers because they are inviting you into their own world and see things from new perspectives as well. So yes, it's not just you're telling tales by by moonlight. No, it's all about communication and how much you infuse that into it. Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, so the difference between storytelling and fact telling is I okay, I'm just gonna share my screen again so I can make reference to that slide. Okay. Okay. So yeah. Oh, yeah. So basically, fact is data. I mean, fact is data. So facts will just inform you about stuff. Facts is logic. Facts will give you short-term memory. But a story will inspire. A story would inspire. A story would mix, it's a mixed bag of logic and emotion. It's a mixed bag of logic and emotion. And a story would also have a long-term impact on you. You probably just forget, you'll probably not remember facts. It's a fact. It's there, but you probably may not remember it for long. But a story blended with facts would give you a long-term impact or will give you a long-term feeling or emotion. And then stories would blend logic and emotion. Stories would inspire. That's why people say your story inspired me to do or act in a certain way. Now, because I listened to you, because I heard your story, I was moved to do X, Y, Z. You often hear people say that, oh, because of your story, I was moved to also come out to tell my story. A couple of years ago, when I was still a volunteer, I hosted a conference in Nigeria, Share Your Story. And it was a conference I organized for people, liberty leaders, to come around and share their stories of how they found the ideas of liberty and why it matters to them. So people are naturally drawn to stories because it inspires them and moves them to act in a certain way. And that's why you see people that, for instance, when victims of a particular case, when they share their stories, because they've shared their stories, some other victims would also come out to tell their stories because they felt that if this person can do this, I also have a similar experience, I can also do this. So stories would inspire and cause people to act in a certain way. It blends logic and emotions. It has long-term effect on people, but facts does not do that. So stories, it's a combination of two elements or more than two elements. Why facts will probably just be a single element. So that's about that. Okay, cool. What's the culture? Why is the culture of nightly bedtime stories dying in the family life in Nigeria? Well, a few things really, to the best of my knowledge. I think technology as well, but I think family orientation too. Family orientation too, in a way. I wouldn't say that it's died, but I think it's cultural because, and I think as we age too, the modern age that we are right now. But I know that some families, the reason why I said families too, individual families, the reason why I said that is I know some families that do still read, bedtime stories to their kids before they go to bed. They read some portion of a book, a chapter of a book to their kids. Some families still do the round table bedtime, storytelling before bedtime and all of that. So life, I would say life, and as technology advances too, priorities also have changed and whatnot. But I still don't want to believe that it's completely dead in our family life but I think it's preferences individually and as family lives grow as well. Yeah, that's what I can say on that. Okay, thank you for the question, guys. I don't know how much of a time we have left, but if there are other questions that you want to ask, or you can shoot them through Eric and or reach out to me personally as well. It's always a delight to talk to every one of you, and thank you, Eric, once again for pulling this off. And Yafo, thank you so much, and I wish you the very best of luck in your project and in everything that you do as well. I'm leaving my email in the chat. That's my email. So please feel free to reach out and thank you so much for having me, guys, and take care.
Thank you, Mr. Olufemi Ogunjobi, for the amazing, impactful, insightful submission you made and presentation. We are very grateful. I learned a lot from the new sides of storytelling, the types of stories, how it adds values to other people's lives. And we couldn't have more than that. Thank you very much and very grateful. So to the rest of us, we want to make a communique to all of us. The grand finale is on the 27th of April. So all other details will be shared on the page. Thank you very much for our participants too. Without you, we wouldn't have come to this exciting stage of this workshop. Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers as well. And to your full ILEE and everyone. Thank you and God bless you.
Hello, Priscilla is speaking.
Please. Please, can I be heard? And Christiana, can I be heard? Hello. Hello,
Well, I don't know if you can hear me clearly, and if everyone can hear Priscilla.
Please, I
I don't
can
know
hear
that
you. Can I be heard?
I can't hear you clearly, so I don't know if everybody can hear you, but your line keeps on breaking. So would like to thank Mr. Olufemi so much for that insightful session. And We are so honored to have you to take us through today's session. Yeah. So we are all geared up for the grand finale. I can see that. So we'll continue with that discussion on the page. The grand finale is on the 26th of April. So let's all be prepared for that. And it promises to be rewarding. So just make sure you do all your assignments and then do join our sessions. If you joined all of our sessions, know that you are making it to the grand finale. Thank you once again, Mr. Olufemi. Drop an emoji in the chat box if you enjoyed his session and say thank you for this lovely and insightful session. Our president is on the chat. I don't know if you would like to address us, but if not, then we will really show appreciation to Mr. Olufemi, and that will be it for the day. So I did this with Priscilla. Priscilla, thank you so much for co-moderating with me today, and thanks to everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you once again, Mr. Olufemi. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.